Dog Works Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
You can support this podcast on patreon.com/firstpawmedia.
If you followed the news lately, you probably heard about the prison escape in Alabama, where a convict and a female prison worker made a break for it. It did not end well for either of them, but it got me thinking about prison escapes and tracking dogs. I'm sure you have seen movies with bloodhounds baying away as they search to and fro for the escaped prisoners. On today's show, we're going to share a quick story about one famous bloodhound on the trail.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Anchorage, Alaska. This is Dog Works Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert and Michelle Forto.
Hello and welcome to Dog Works Radio. I'm your host, Michelle Forto. I'm also the lead trainer of Alaska Dog Works, where we help humans and their dogs have better relationships. On today's show, we're going to be talking about the big-eared canine trackers and how one became famous in the drugstore paperback book section. Bloodhounds were brought out to aid in the hunt for the two convicted killers who broke out of Dannemora State Prison. For at least a century and a half, the breed has played a major role in law enforcement. Perhaps the most famous of these droopy-faced, big-eared scenting sleuths was Nick Carter, a Kentucky hound named for a popular dime novel detective. He was born in late 1899, and with handler Captain G.V. Mulliken, he became an American legend for his mantrailing talents. The team was so famous that crowds would come out to watch them work. Nick is credited with more than 650 finds. In 1903, writes Nona Kilgore Bauer in Bloodhound evidence gathered by Nick's nose sent 126 criminals to jail. He was particularly skilled at tracking cold and very old scent trails and was known for having followed one for 55 miles. In 1909, Mulliken and Nick were called to the scene of a fire that was strongly suspected of being arson. The problem was the barn had burned down more than 100 hours earlier. It seemed impossible that even Nick would be able to make any sense of the residual odors. Nose to the ground, the big red dog circled the charred ruins. Then, suddenly, he lifted his tail and was off, leading Mulliken to a farmhouse about a mile away. The man inside grew pale the second he saw the bloodhound. He had figured that the flames would have destroyed any scent evidence and no dog would have been able to find him. Nick had one more year of active service before his legs gave out. He died shortly after his retirement. Mulliken continued working for 2 more decades with other bloodhounds. In his long career, he helped to bring 2,500 criminals to justice. If you have a bloodhound and would like to play at being Nick Carter and V.G. Mulliken, you can participate in a sport called mantrailing. We're going to learn about it after a short break.
We're living in uncertain times. If there is one thing we can be thankful for, that is the recent pet adoption boom. Shelters are being cleared out, and that means you may not know much about your new best friend. Alaska Dog Works virtual and on-site classes are the best way for you to build a lasting bond and learn about your pup, new or old. From setting up a proper routine to learning the commands and much more, Alaska Dog Works provides you with the resources to develop your dog into one of the best. Right now, Alaska Dog Works has an exclusive offer just for our listeners. Go to alaskadogworks.com now and use promo code DOGWORKS and save 20% off your training program at the time of your booking. Visit alaskadogworks.com and use promo code DOGWORKS to save 20% today. That's alaskadogworks.com and use promo code DOGWORKS at the time of booking.
Though it's been around in one form or another for hundreds of years, mantrailing is still a helpful tool when hunting for missing persons, despite technological advances. Mantrailing dogs continue to prove their worth locating criminals, missing children, and people with Alzheimer's, among others. In fact, these trained dogs' trailing skills are so reliable that court proceedings accept their findings as evidence. In recent years, the activity has been growing in popularity as a recreational and competitive dog sport. Increasingly, breeds other than bloodhounds are also putting their scenting and trailing skills to the test. After all, a dog's sense of smell is at least 40 times more sensitive than humans. But what is mantrailing? Dogs learn to seek out an individual's scent from skin rafts, dead or dying cells that naturally shed from the body. Before the exercise begins, the dog will sniff an article that the person has touched. Then they follow the trail on a long leash attached to a harness, aiming to locate that person. Terry Heck and her husband Jim run Summit Search and Rescue in Pennsylvania, and they are also man-trailing judges for the American Bloodhound Club. They currently have 2 bloodhounds, Briggs and Stratton, on their team. 7-year-old seasoned detective Canine Briggs has worked hundreds of cases locating missing and wanted individuals. The solid indications she has provided have led to numerous search warrants, arrests, and convictions, explains Terry. Experienced dogs and handlers can follow scent trails that are up to 2 days old, but seriously, skilled bloodhounds have been known to follow trails weeks after the individual has passed through the area. Dogs used for man-trailing in the police or search and rescue teams are in constant training. They will work a variety of aged and new trails, be out in all weather, and negotiate differing terrains and environments. Whether you are a professional man-trailer or just taking part as a hobby, the training should always be fun for your dog. If you want them to stay focused and motivated, they need to find the activity rewarding. What constitutes rewarding will vary depending on the dog. Some love food, while others will work for toys. Why is the bloodhound such a champion man-trailer? Bloodhounds are the ultimate man-trailers. Most breeds have, on average, 100 million scent receptors in their noses. Bloodhounds have at least double that number. They are also known for being persistent, relentless, and somewhat stubborn. Their long, droopy ears and jowly, wrinkled faces trap scents as they have their face down sniffing on the trail. With their long, muscular necks and powerful bodies, these dogs have the stamina needed to handle long days out in challenging terrain. Jan Rothwell, who hilariously describes herself as the dope at the end of the rope, has 40 years of bloodhound experience and is another man-trailing judge for the ABC. She describes the breed as being a nose with a dog attached, and she is an advocate for trailing with them because it's an activity they were bred for and that they truly love doing. Can dogs other than bloodhounds excel at man-trailing? It's not just bloodhounds that can take part in professional man-trailing. Other hunting breeds like pointers and intelligent-driven dogs like the Belgian Malinois and German Shepherd are often employed for the job too. For owners wanting to try man-trailing as a hobby, not every dog will take to it, but those that do enjoy it find the sport to be a fantastic way to harness their innate drive to engage their nose. What benefits can this sport offer you and your dog? Unlike other dog sports, man-trailing is suitable for young puppies, elderly, blind, deaf, and tripod dogs. It's a perfect low-impact activity. Reactive dogs And those that are nervous or fearful can take part too. They don't have to work near other dogs or people, and it's possible to control the environment. This helps to build confidence and allows them a great deal of autonomy. A dog that has spent the day following a trail will come home tired and mentally and physically stimulated without having been over aroused. Mantrailing relies a lot on the trust between the dog and handler, so it's a great way to strengthen the bond you have. Rothwell offers some sage advice for the novice trailer. Don't interfere with your dog's ability, she says. Your job is to learn what your dog is telling you with the head, tail, and other cues. Keep an open mind and be a worthy partner. How does mantrailing different from AKC tracking? Mantrailing is often referred to as tracking, but this is actually a different type of scent work. AKC tracking competitions require the dog to follow a recent trail and find articles along the way. The track is usually 1 to 5 hours old, isn't longer than 1,000 yards, and there is no person to find at the end of it. Competitive mantrailing, on the other hand, is all about following the individual scent from the start of the trail to the end, with the goal of finding that person. Trails are much older, up to 36 hours at the most advanced level, and can vary in their difficulty. The most challenging trails will put the dogs in congested areas and use additional runners to contaminate the scent. How to get involved in mantrailing. Mantrailing for hobby participants hasn't yet taken off in the United States in the way it has in Europe, but interest is growing. The American Bloodhound Club has 3 recognized trailing titles that dogs and handlers can work toward. Participants just need AKC registration and must have completed the event entry certification test. These titles are, of course, only open to bloodhounds. For other dogs, it is still possible to take part in mantrailing events. A good starting point would be to contact the American Mantrailing Police and Work Dog Association. Tony Keith is a master instructor for the association. He started his mantrailing career in 1991 when he was assigned to the canine team for the Indiana Department of Correction. Since then, he has participated in more than 500 manhunts. The AMPWDA holds free to the public training one Saturday each month in Indiana. Tony explains, "We are a member-based organization and host 2 national seminars in the spring and fall in Indiana and several state workshops across America." And what are his top tips when it comes to trailing? Trust your dog, be patient, make every training session enjoyable, and to keep a log or journal. So what do you think? Have you ever heard of Nick Carter, canine detective? Have you ever owned a bloodhound or participated in mantrailing or tracking events? Let us know in the comments or on our social channels. And one last thing, did you know the single best thing you can do for our show is tell your family and friends how to listen? Who knows? They might become a rabid listener just like you. I'm Michelle Forto for Dog Works Radio and First Paw Media. See you next time.
From First Paw Media, this is Dog Works Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michelle Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.